It's still talking business on Independent Television. I have Destiny Owubu, an economist and statistician in the studio. Welcome, Destiny.
Thank you for having me. Good afternoon.
Well, it's a pleasure. All right, now let's look at the 2023 budget proposal. That budget's proposal, in fact, since it was presented at the National Assembly, lots of reactions have been generated around it, and lots of it come from the huge deficits it carries, and lots of suggestions as well. Yeah. Now, looking at the budget, there is a school of thought around it that it should be reviewed sort of to carry only national priorities. Is it possible to do that?
Yeah, I think we're in a difficult situation generally, so it's not, the government is not in a strong position to make a budget that people like. We're in a difficult situation. First of all, we are owing a lot of money and we have to pay this amount. Secondly, the prices are high at this point. Exchange rate is weak. Poverty is rising. So at this point, the government is not in the strongest position to make a healthy budget that will not cause a problem. If you check what has been happening in the last 3 months, the CBN currently has been trying to mop up excess cash. Okay? Now, if you compare that to what the budget is saying, it's the opposite of what the CBN is doing. Government wants to spend more money, and then the CBN is trying to take out more money. The two policies are cross purposes. Are you getting the point now? So it means there's no synergy between the Ministry of Finance and the CBN policy. It means they are not working together, not because they don't want to work together. Both of them are in a difficult situation. So when we are talking about this budget, we are referring to what plans has government for this country when it is heavily indebted. I think the budget was not properly named. It should be called debt consolidation budget. As we speak, Nigeria owes over 40 trillion. And then this budget, we have another deficit of about 8 trillion.
Which takes it almost 50.
Almost 50. Out of this deficit, we are still going to borrow another 6 trillion and then sell government assets of about 200 billion. So we are going to roll over the debt further. And the most painful part of the budget now is that the government wants to stop subsidy payments. When they do that, the prices of petroleum products will jump up significantly. When the price of petroleum products jump up significantly, it will spread through the economy in prices. As we speak, the prices are already at the rooftops. And then you know petrol is a very important input in production in everything in this country. So what happens when the government stops subsidy payments and then the prices jump up? Then Nigerians will squeeze. I mean, we are in a very difficult situation. All the policies are not aligning up. You know, it's first of all, it's a tacit admission of government failure that 8 years ago there was a campaign that there was no subsidy, that the subsidy thing was a fraud. 8 years later, the government is now admitting that it is a problem and now saying that they are going to remove it in the 2023 budget. When things have gone from bad to worse, this policy was being campaigned 11 years ago, that the subsidy problem was a problem. Why did it take us 11 years to get to this same point? You know, that time I said to people, I said we are shifting the evil, we keep shifting the evil. There are times we take hard decisions. Now when you don't take hard decisions, you meet the problems in front. Nigeria is not in a very great position as we speak. I must tell you, I sometimes wonder what the government is going through. They are going through a lot of problems at this moment. This is not the best time to be an economic manager. It's not the best time to be an accountant. It's not the best time to be a financial analyst. Because all the statistics, all the values are in the red, that even the brightest of economists, as I speak to you now, will be very confused on what to do with Nigeria's budget. Why? The biggest fulcrum in determining the direction of your budget is revenue. That's exactly what we are not getting right now as I speak to you. Secondly, the oil theft is not even allowing Nigeria to meet up to its quota. Okay, so that we say we generate more money. And then the government is at this transition period, 3 months to go, that the issue of the oil theft, is it just starting? Why is it an issue? In this country, we are not very serious people. Is it now that people are talking about the oil theft? It has been going on for the past 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. Nobody was arrested. Nobody was jailed. That amount of crude oil removed from Nigeria, that's sabotage. That's serious sabotage. In a sensible country, As I speak to you, by now, 20, 30 people will be in jail, including top government officials, ministers, and all of them. Why? Because you cannot steal that amount of crude from a country without the government being complicit, directly or indirectly in it. That does not mean, I'm not naming figures, but...
Now, in talking about the oil theft issue,
yes,
you recall that in addressing it or in trying to investigate how it's been happening and perhaps put a stop to it,
yes,
a private firm was contracted to investigate it in order to rule out the issue of complicity,
yes,
of government officials and agencies that may be involved in it. But do you see light at the end of the tunnel, even though it's just a few months to the end of this administration?
Yes. Where is the light coming from? The incoming president or incoming leaders are going to have a lot of problems. They are going to inherit an economy with so much problems. We are not looking at the possibility of that. They are going to work with this budget. They are going to work with the problems that we are facing right now. We should be looking at, I pity the person that is going to take over from Nigeria.
But that would sound very pessimistic.
No, you have to be pessimistic. Should I give you all the figures? If I give you all the figures, where is the optimism coming from?
If the budget is reviewed and there's a new budgetary allocation based on perhaps some needs that may be considered of very high priority and maybe something's taken out, would there be hope?
The problem of Nigeria is not the budget. It is governance, poor administration. It's not the budget. The budget itself is the best of the budget it can be. What about the corruption? What about the leakages in the system? What about poor governance issues? What about security issues? These are the problems with the economy. What about the supply side economics? You are talking about budget, talking about central bank and those kind of things. Those are paper things. You are ignoring the fire and you are dealing with the smoke. What happens to the economy? What happens to the supply shortages? Insecurity that is forcing products not to come to the market. What happens to the flooding issue and how it affects productivity? What happens to the exchange rate issue that is going down, that is forcing suppliers not to be able to have resources to import goods and even increase their supply? What happens to this? These issues are not budget issues. These are macroeconomic, on the ground, hardcore issues that policies, not just policies, action solves. It's not about paper, it's not about designing a beautiful document that we analyze. It's about governance, just ensuring that people who sabotage the society should be prosecuted. It's not what government is trying to do and what it is doing. There are two different things. We are talking about those people that have stolen Nigeria's crude. We must look at it. That's the major source of income. That's what I'm talking about it. The budget is nowhere without our oil. Nigeria is not a well-diversified economy, such that you can say, okay, we can get money from chemicals, from other types of businesses. It's a mono-product economy. Our biggest source of government revenue is crude oil. So when something happens to crude oil, it's supposed to be a national issue, an emergency, that over 600,000 barrels of crude is missing. We don't discuss that in a modern state. That's not something we should be discussed. By now, heads should be rolling. High-profile people should be jailed, and their property should be seized. It's not something we talk and escape. And then when we talk about the budget is simply a statement of what happens in the economy. The budget is simply an estimate of whether government succeeds or fails. It's just a budget. But what happens to the fundamentals behind the budget? The revenue. You saw the revenue there. We are going to borrow to finance this budget. If you fix the oil theft, would you need to borrow that amount? That's the question.
While the fixing of the oil theft issue is a process that is ongoing,
yes.
Some also have talked about national assets, getting returns from national assets, maybe maritime, maybe customs and some other things,
yes,
generating other sources of revenue. Would this suffice?
In fact, they are not going to work. It doesn't make sense. This is the reason why. A modern economy thrives on taxes, not on palliatives. Taxes. So what the government should be doing is a major shift from direct taxes to indirect taxes. That requires serious policy and enforcement. Are you getting the point now? It's
yes.
Indirect taxes. Our current tax structure is very small. Our economy is not buoyant enough to support the modern tax structure. The world is moving from direct taxes to indirect taxes. You cannot have a sustainable economy that is based on a wasting asset like oil. Are you getting it? You need an economy that is driven from production. And that requires us to diversify our economy away from oil dependence to an industrialized economy, such that the government is able to generate its taxes from productivity. Currently, we generate our taxes from a miserizing growth, oil money. In economics, we call it the Dutch disease. A society that depends on a product tends to be redundant in the long run. Whereas what we need is allow foreign companies to come and do business in this country, set up an investment climate, remove corruption, enforce your laws, jail people who should be jailed, so that people will know that the government is serious. When the government is perceived as a serious government that follows through on its economic blueprint, businesses will thrive. When businesses thrive, then government can now tax those businesses. We do not have mega corporations that are capable of giving the government alternative source of revenue. I must tell you, any policy the government designs that is not directed towards increasing the tax of Nigerians, not the tax rate, I mean the tax base, spreading the economy such that we have big companies paying government lump sum amount of taxes, so that the government will not have an alternative for petrol.
But would we say we do not have big companies that can pay government huge taxes?
For a country of Nigeria's size, we do not have any company. For Nigeria's size, what the companies we have are pebble companies, very tiny, minute companies. I'll give you an example. All the banks in Nigeria, all the banks put together, is not as big as the worth of MTN, only one company, one tech company. So what's this? One tech company from South Africa, the net worth of that company is bigger than all the Nigerian banks put together. So where's the big company? MTN happens to be one of the biggest companies in the Nigerian stock exchange.
Okay, so you
we need
mean
more of
like
that.
if we had more tech companies, if we had more companies that could measure up with the worth of such companies, then it would have been possible.
We'll be able to use our resources properly. Then we'll be able to get larger amounts of taxes. Are you getting the point now? Our companies are small relative to the size of the economy. We don't have big companies. We have over 19 million kiosk businesses.
Small scale
businesses. And I can assure you half of them do not pay taxes because they don't have a proper accounting system. They are not properly regulated. They don't have an incentive to generate money and pay to the government. You know why? They don't operate on corporate governance rules. You know, they can afford to not pay government for 5 years and still exist. But a company like Coca-Cola, for instance, cannot do that because it is against its personal interest. If they don't pay taxes, they are not going to be able to do business with other companies worldwide because they are mega corporations. They operate on certain rules, which, apart from the fact that they need to pay taxes, they have to play by civic rules. But small companies don't have any incentive to do that. So what government should be doing is, how do we encourage mega companies to be formed in this country? How do we push resources such that the average Nigerian productivity will increase, so that we can run mega companies that will pay government taxes, which they use to run the economy? Because as it is now, the incidence of tax in Nigeria does not fall on the average Nigerian taxpayer. It falls on the oil economy. Because I can assure you, the money you use to run this country does not come from the taxpayer. It comes from oil. And oil is not a person, it's not a productive asset, apart from just generating revenue. We need productive people. We need a productive set of Nigerians in terms of institutional building, company formation, generating lots of wealth. We need trillions of dollars of investment in this country to be able to develop a viral, sustainable economy such that government can sit and generate taxes and run the economy. That's sustainable. Because that's not what we are doing now. We are simply having what we call an extractive economy at the moment. What that means is that all of us sit down, do small pebble businesses, and then wait for the oil to be drilled from the ground because it's black gold, and then we sell it at high prices, and we use to run the economy. It's like you are trying to feed a full village from a pot of soup. It doesn't work. You have to find a way to create more pots so that more people will cook more soup in their backyard, and then you can have better fed economy. This
need to create more pots.
Yes.
Is it feasible given the current economic situations, attracting investment? We know the security issue and the exchange rate issue. Are these feasible?
These are not short-term solutions. What I'm talking about are long-term solutions. So we need leaders with strategic thinking. But in the interim, what government can do is this, like I always say, in the interim, given that the exchange rate is very poor now, the CBN is doing its best. If you check the CBN policy, they've mopped up about 6 trillion in the last 4 months from the economy to try to stem the prices. But you know, it's not doing anything because the prices are still going up. They try to force Nigerians to stay at home. Nigerians are spending a lot of money getting out of this country. In fact, they convert dollars, naira to dollars, and go out of this country. The federal government is trying to reduce that by ensuring that they squeeze the financial system such that this exchange rate is not in our best interest and force those Nigerians to repatriate those funds back. But Nigerians do not care. What they are trying to do is they try to, even at the cost of the exchange rate, A lot of Nigerians are looking for money, converting it to dollars, and getting out of this country. It's not working. You know why it's not working? Because there's no support base. So what the government needs to do is this: we need to take seriously
What would be the support base at this time?
The support base is supposed to be the economy, productive economy. It is not productive. That is why we're having that problem. You see, what happens in the financial system is based on what happens in the real sector. The real sector is the fire. The financial system is the smoke that comes from the fire. All financial systems are based on the real economy. If the real economy is weak, the financial system simply mirrors what happens in the real economy. So the fact that the CBN is doing most of this work, the Ministry of Finance has 3 times more job to do than the central bank. You know why we're talking about the central bank? Because it is the most organized institution. Whereas the solution of this problem is a fiscal problem. We have a fiscal problem, not a
that should have been handled by the Minister of Finance.
By the Minister of Finance and the presidency. It's a fiscal issue. The budget issue is not a financial issue. It's a fiscal issue. What happens to revenue and expenditure? What are the sources of revenue? How is it diversified? What are the problems inside the budget that we can fix? Except that this budget itself is coming from oil. The budget itself should have come from the economy, not from oil. That's where the problem is. And so in the interim, what we can do is to increase our supply, to at least meet up to OPEC quota. And for us to increase our supply, we need to, as a matter of urgency, call an emergency, lock up some oil thieves, in the next 3 months. We are talking about short-term measures.
To show up
our production up to the OPEC quota. We have not met OPEC quota in over a year because of oil theft. So if we're able to block those leakages, then we can show it up to that OPEC quota and generate more money quickly in the interim to help to support the budget. That is the way to get that in the short run, because it's not as if we have so much opportunities beyond the oil. There's no other short-term thing. Government is not going to magically create a company in 3 months. You get the point? So it's still this oil theft thing. There's a reason I'm hammering on it. We cannot be talking about the statistics of the budget when we ignore the causes of the problems in the budget. And the biggest cause of that problem is what is happening to our oil industry, because that's the major source of revenue.
Okay, hopefully there will be light at the end of the tunnel with the oil theft issue, and then Nigeria can increase its production quota and benefit from the oil market, even as it's still a bit favorable, yes, right now. Who knows what could happen after this time?
Yeah.
We just hope it doesn't plunge. Now, let's look at the foreign scene. Yesterday, there was breaking news that shocked the world. Barely, it's not even up to 2 months that the United Kingdom got a new prime minister,
yes.
Liz Truss, and then there was a report that she is resigning. I know that came as a shock. But looking at the political chaos of the UK right now, losing a monarch, having a new monarch, and then having a prime minister resign, and the one who just took over resigning in less than 2 months, how do you think that would impact them economically?
Yeah, of course, instability in government is a problem anywhere in the world. You know, they are sending shock waves to the international market. It's going to hurt the economy badly, because Liz Truss came and said she wanted to be a transformational leader. She brought a series of policies too quick, too soon. All of them to be deployed within 3 months, the first 3 months in office. Now, in a conservative society like United Kingdom, you must understand the long-term definition of United Kingdom is conservative economics. They've always been conservative. So for transformational leaders to succeed, they only succeed when there is a crisis. There's a serious economic crisis. Transformational leaders are not status quo leaders. They are brought to government when the economy is tumbling, and then you need somebody to revamp it. But that was not the problem with England. The reason why they removed Boris Johnson is not because his economics was bad. It was because of an ethical issue. It's about governance, ethical issues. And now the British people are regretting. They have what called the problem of dire loss. What that means is that you want a new leader, you fight an old leader and victimize the old leader and make him devilish. And then he left and you brought another person. And this other person is worse than the former leader. So they are now thinking, did they make a mistake by bringing this lady in? Because she promised a lot of things. Normally, when politicians promise a lot of things, when they get to power, they stop using their promises, start using their head, and begin to...
Because the reality hits them.
Because the reality hits them. This woman did not come like that. She came, what she promised, she decided to deliver. And from day one, she started doing those policies. And in managing change, when you want to manage change, it's better to do it slowly in an evolution way, not revolution method. The method she used was revolution, not evolution.
And so it was counterproductive.
It was counterproductive because it was too fast, too soon. Investors are watching what is happening in the body politics. And so when you make a pronouncement like that, they keep their funds and watch what is going to happen. They are very sensitive. Their markets is close to a perfect market, which means information is very important. So any statement from the government is taken seriously. It's not like in Africa here where we have a time lag. Their own is instantaneous. So when she came and she cut up, she cut tax to boost spending. There was a mistake with that. When you try to boost spending, you forget that there's already inflation in England. So the prices went higher. And then he wanted to fight it through the monetary policy. She went to sell bonds. And when she went to buy bonds, when you buy bonds, you are going to put more money in circulation so that interest rates will go down.
So it's compounding the problem.
So when they did that, the policy was now somersaulting. And so she made a very big mistake again. She fired the Treasury Secretary. When you fire an important person like that in any economy, it sends shivers around the economy that there's a problem in government. So that sent a very big negative. That it's like the government is confused. That person she fired is a trusted ally of his party. He's a trusted ally of his government. So when it's like I'm working with a particular central bank governor and I sing her praises, and suddenly something is happening in just about 40 days, I sack the person. It's going to send information to people that there's an insider problem in the government. And that's what led to the downfall of our government. People saw it coming. The moment she started doing policy flip-flop, they knew that she's confused. She doesn't know what's happening. She was giving a policy on the one hand. On the left hand, the policy is going right this way, but on the monetary side, it's going left. So people felt it was not consistent. And take note too, the person she contested with before she got to power gave the alternative.
Rishi Sunak.
Yes, gave the alternative that said this thing you are doing is revolutionary. What we want to do is confidence and stability. That one sold a message, confidence and stability. In a hurry, in a bid to really send Boris Johnson out of government, the people bought into her policy. Now this other guy is reveling and saying, I told you people that her economics is bad.
So what do you see happening now, even as a new leader will have to come up?
The new leader that is coming up will have to sell only one message: stability, confidence and stability, and reverse all our policies slowly. Reverse our policies slowly. In fact, all you need to do to be in government now is to look at all our policies, rewrite it backward, and do the opposite. And promise people that you're not going to do the opposite immediately, because with the value stability more than the economics now, that you are going to, in a 6 months period, transition period, you're going to reverse the economy back to equilibrium before things go out of control.
So how do you think all of that will play out on the value of the pound sterling and the economy of UK?
The pound sterling is already suffering. So what it will play out is that the first policy now is to try to restore confidence in the pound. Okay, so in the next 3 months, what the next leader will need to do is to take the pound back to where it was before now. And that will require them to be very careful with how they make pronouncements. I assure you, in the next 3 months, the British government will say nothing about the economy because too much talk is hitting the economy up.
So it's just be like a speculative government?
Yes, they'll be very careful. They will bring in the leader quietly and do more mathematics before they do more pronouncements. Because half of what is happening here is multiple pronouncements in a very short time. Somebody is not dead, you want to bury the person. The UK economy was not the worst economy in the world. They did not need a transformational leader. They needed a leader who is just willing to make a progressive change, not a dynamic flip-flop change. But this lady came with this aggression, and this aggression is not good for a conservative economy like the United Kingdom, where we have seasoned economists. Central bank is working effectively. It's a system government. In a system government, you don't need a transformational leader. But that woman that's not to say her policy was totally bad. It's just that she came at the wrong time. We have constitutional leaders. She came at a time when England did not need such a transformational leader. You know, she rode on the failure of Boris Johnson, which the English people are regretting as we speak. So
in other words, it could be like an inappropriate method being used to run government at that time. Well, we just took a look at the foreign scene, looking at UK's political chaos and how it's impacting their economy. and also the pound sterling. Thank you very much, Destiny Obu, for coming on the show.
Thank you very
If you missed the show or you just joined now, we've talked about the new lending rate and how it's impacting businesses, looked at 2023 budget, its implication on the economy, and then lastly at the UK political chaos. Again, thank you for being on the show. And it's a wrap today. Thank you for watching. I am Blessing AJ. Enjoy your weekend.